this will be my mimer that we're going to learn together, so that I could do my birthday mimer together. Now, this mimer, Bar Nifs V'Sayim, it might sound like random, why are we learning it? But it is the last mimer that we got edited from the Rebbe. And let me explain what that means. The Rebbe had a stroke, as we all know, on the 27th of Adar, 1992. And a few months later, the Hasidim that used to work on editing the Rebbe's Maimarim and bringing it into him for final editing, they prepared a mimer that the Rebbe said 5 years prior, in 1987, just before Sukkot. And because it talks about healing, and obviously the Rebbe at that time, after the stroke, we were unable to hear him, he wasn't able to speak, so they felt that it was the right mimer to give, and therefore it was, the Rebbe edited it by looking through it and nodding and saying that he accepts the editing, and it came out. It was the last mimer that we ever got, and because it was talking about healing, it really resonated. Now, when did they give it out? They gave it out for Rosh Chodesh Kislev, which, as we know, is the day that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, in 1977, when he had the heart attack, he got well and left his office, which had turned into a medical center. He left his office for the first time to go home on Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So 15 years exactly, in 1992, they gave out this mimer, Bar Nifs V'Sayim. So this mimer is based on a mimer of the Rebbe's father-in-law, which was said 50 years before the Rebbe said. The Rebbe said in 1987, and this was said in 1937, just before World War II, while the Frierdiker Rebbe, while the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was living in Poland. Eventually, he would leave Poland and make it over to the States, but that would only be in 1940. So, in general, an interesting anecdote when it comes to Hasidic discourses is rarely is a discourse, a mimer, the first version of it. In other words, usually the way it works is that you'll find the original mimer comes from the first Chabad Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, and then it's evolved by the following Rebbe. So this mimer can be traced all the way back to the Alter Rebbe, to the author of the Tanya. It wasn't with the same beginning and the same ending, but the themes are there. The first one who actually used the mimer similar to the way we see the final version was the Rebbe Maharash, the fourth Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Shmuel, and his grandson, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, then took it to the next level, and the Rebbe based his discourse on Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak's version. Now we're going to learn it inside. I'm going to go at a relatively decent, quick pace. But ultimately, what are we trying to get out of this mimer? What we're going to walk out of this mimer is an incredible appreciation on the power of tshuva, the power of returning, the power of getting close to Hashem. We're going to see how that connects to medicine. We're going to learn an incredible insight on the power of medicine in a spiritual sense and in a physical sense. And we're going to learn about our relationship with Hashem. So let's get straight into it. The first words, the words upon which the mimer is based on is Borei Nifs V'Sayim, Shalom Shalom L'Rachoik V'Lakarev Amar Hashem L'Fasiv, which literally translates, I will create fruit of your lips, peace, peace to the far and to the near, says Hashem, I will heal him. The context is Yeshaya Hanavi, Yeshaya the prophet, in this parak, Parak 57, Nun Zayin, he's talking, it's actually unclear what stage of history he was talking about, but obviously the Jews were, based on the context, were misbehaving, and earlier, the verses before that, it's quite admonishing, and towards the end of the chapter, we have this verse, where Hashem says, for those who return, I will create fruits of the lips, peace, peace to the far and to the near. And my father-in-law, when he said a mimer, when he said a discourse on this verse, he says, which was said 50 years ago. on the same day that the Rebbe said it, which was the Yartzeit, the passing of the Rebbe Marash. And as I said, the Rebbe Marash was the first one that really formed this mimer. So the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote, the nivs fasayim, that the words nivs fasayim, fruits of lips, who dibur haba mimela, implies words that come out automatically, but it comes out but from the lips themselves. That's what the previous Rebbe says. Now, when you actually learn the previous Rebbe's mimer, you don't understand why does nivs fasayim imply that it's words that come out from itself. So the Rebbe actually explains it and says the mashmos halash nivs fasayim, the context, the words nivs fasayim mean shahaniv, that the words dibur bamas fasayim atzmim, they come from the lips. The words are coming from the lips. They're not coming from the mind. The message is that the speech is not coming from the mind. It's not that the mind is speaking through the mechanism of the mouth. It's the mouth talking. Nivs fasayim, literally the lips are moving on their own. Sheba me'atzmei, it's coming from itself. And what is the upside? What's the big deal about words that are coming on their own without intellectual intention? And to add, the lashon hakasuv b'bered nivs fasayim, the pirish brio chidush, shenase davar chadash lo yemikaydem bedugmas chidush diyesh ma'im. He says the word boire, creation, is something new. As we know, the first words in the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim, as the Shema Maratz, Hashem created the heaven and the earth in the beginning. The word bara literally means ex nihilo, something from nothing. That's what bara implies. So when we say bara, we're meaning literally something from nothing. I'll skip the brackets just for the sake of simplicity. So umizeh shenemar boirei nivs fasayim shenivs fasayim uchidush. And from the fact that we say the words boirei nivs fasayim, Hashem's creating the moving of the lips, the fruit of the lips. The fact that we use the word boirei means we are doing a chiddush. It's something new. It's something, a renewal. From the fact that we use the word bara, which means something new, an incredible new idea, means that when speech comes from within itself, rather than when speech comes from intention, it is so much higher. It's a chiddush. It's an incredible renewal. It's something powerful. The question is, seemingly, somebody who blabbers and talks without thinking, that's not exactly a great level. Unfortunately, we all know too many people, or we are ourselves, who talk without thinking. So why in the world is someone talking without thinking on a greater level than somebody who's talking from thought? That Hashem created such a powerful level that the person talks without thinking. What's the big deal? Why is it so much greater? That's really the question. Says the Rebbe in Ois Beis, in the second part. There's 8 parts to this mimer. After the previous Rebbe brings these points, and I asked my questions, the Rebbe says, and we didn't explore it yet. We'll go to it later. I want to bring up, says the Rebbe, a few more questions that arise when you look in my father-in-law's discourse. And when we explore my father-in-law's discourse, there'll be certain things that call out, and I want to explore them as well. What do I want to explore? On the verse, Boirei nivs fasayim, which is, as we said in Yeshaya, the prophet Isaiah, there are commentaries that explain the context. In general, when you want to learn the Nevi'im, you want to learn Yeshaya, if you don't have any mefarish, if you don't have any commentary, it's very hard to make sense of context, what exactly is going on. So one of the major commentaries on the Nach, on the prophets, is Pirush HaRadak, Rab David Kimchi. And what does he say? Al Pasuk, Yeshnam Shnei Pirushim B'Larachak L'Karv. He brings 2 interpretations on the words close and far. Remember, the verse goes, Boirei nivs fasayim, Hashem creates lips, Shalom, peace, L'Rachak V'Lakarev, to the far and to the close. Amar Hashem Rafasiv, Hashem says, I will heal him. So he brings 2 interpretations, L'Rachik V'Lakarev. Haradak atzmai, the Radak, on himself, in other words, his own interpretation that he brings, larachaik, to far. Who's the far, who's the close? He says far to Yerushalayim, far to Jerusalem, the Lakarv line close to Yerushalayim. That's his own commentary on the verse. But after that, he brings the sages, Shapirsha, that they say, the Lerachai came Bali Tshuva, Lakarvim Tzadikim. That the people who are far refers to people who return to Hashem, who made mistakes and then return, to do tshuva, and Lakarv, to the people who are close, is Tzadikim. And we know what the Gemara says in the Talmud of Brachas, Makim Shabali Tshuva Oimdim Tzadikim Gmurim Einam, that the space where a Baal Tshuva stands, in other words, the level that a Baal Tshuva can attain, a complete Tzadik cannot attain. Shenemar Shalom Shalom Larachik L'Karv. How do we know this? Because first Hashem says hello to the farther one, to the Baal Tshuva, and only after that, L'Karv, L'Rachik Bereisha, to the farther one first, the Hadar L'Karv after to the close one. So that's what the previous Rebbe writes in his discourse. He quotes the two commentaries, the two interpretations that are brought by the Radak. Far of Yerushalayim and close to Yerushalayim, and Baal Tshuvas and Tzadikim. Tzarech Lav, and now the Rebbe asks this question, the fact that he brings first the Radak's own interpretation, the one about Yerushalayim, and only then the one from the sages from the Gemara, mashma, that implies it implies that the first interpretation of Radak is more in context to what we're discussing in the Maimar. One of the major ideas that the Rebbe brings over and over, especially when you learn his Rashi Sichas, is if Rashi will bring two interpretations, the first one takes precedence. So the fact that the previous Rebbe brought the first interpretation first means it belongs more in our context. Sarach Bir says, the Rebbe, I don't understand. If you actually go into the Maimer of the previous Rebbe, a big part of the Maimer talks about the difference between Baal Tshuvas and Tzadikim, which is exactly what the Radak talks about in the second commentary. So lama maktim pirush haradak shalarachik urachik mirushalayim lifnei pirush hagemara shalarachik Baal Tshuva. Why bring the interpretation that far is far of Yerushalayim and close to Yerushalayim before you learn the Gemara, before you bring the Gemara, which is exactly what you're trying to teach us in this Maimer, that far is Baal Tshuva and close is Tzadikim. V'hine, says the Rebbe, we know hatam al zeh shegadla ma'alasam shabal tshuva al ma'alasat tzadikim. We know that the reason why Baal Tshuvas are so much greater than Tzadikim in their level, who it is, can move by Maimer, like it says in the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer, v'pnei she'avedasam shabal tshuva hi b'chei yatir. Because the work of the Baal Tshuva is done with incredible trepidation, with incredible passion. They do it with intensity. That's the correct word, with intensity. Umedayek by Maimer, and the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, he says, seemingly the only reason why the Baal Tshuva has more passion and more intensity is because he was far. Because first he was far, and now he's trying to get close. So what did the tzaddik do wrong? Why is the tzaddik, who was never far, why does he have to suffer and be on a level lower than the Baal Tshuva? You want me to sin? What do you want me to do? Why should they be any greater than the level of a tzaddik who was always close to Hashem? We also have to understand. Also, we have to understand, says the Rebbe, the final words of the pasuk. Hashem says, hello, hello, to the far and to the close, says Hashem, and I will heal him. Why do you have to heal him? If you just made the far close by saying hello and greeting the Baal Tshuva, why does he need healing? If the far one became close and it's all good for him, shalom, shalom, why does he need healing? What kind of healing does he need? So those are all the questions. We're basically opening up one verse, one pasuk in the book of Yeshaya. So to explain all this, the previous Rebbe focuses first on the verse that says in Yeshaya a bit earlier, that all that is called by my name, God, indeed is for my glory, that I have created it, I formed it, and I made it. Everything in this world is for my honor. Everything is for me, for my honor. Now, there's obviously the literal translation of this verse, and then there's the Chassidus interpretation of this verse. The words we use is berasiv, yitzartiv, asisiv, and if we know a little bit of Chassidic lingo, we know that refers to the three major worlds. We live in the lowest world, the world of Asiya. Then there's the world higher than us, the world of angels, the world of Yetzirah. And then there's a higher world, the world of Bria, the world of creation. Yeberasiv, Bria, Yitzartiv, Yetzirah, Asiya. Shebehem nichlalim kol ha'olamus, that includes all the worlds. Umevaer, and the previous Rebbe explained, she'eschabru ha'olamus ba'arein soif, that to bind these worlds, these lowly worlds, compared to Hashem, with Hashem, in other words, to elevate them, to upgrade them and elevate them from where they are in our world, to bring them to Hashem, and the other way, to bring the Shekhinah down, elevate, and bring down. That's the dual relationship we have with Hashem. We elevate the world towards Him, and Hashem brings His Shekhinah down into this world. So in order to create that yin-yang, that relationship of elevation and descending, while you're there, Torah, it's through Torah. And that's what it means, that for my honor I created it, I formed it, and I made it. The Torah, we're taught Ein Kaved Ala Torah in Pirkei Avos, and that means honor is Torah. So when Hashem says B'lichvaydi, and for my Torah, that's how I connect. That's how you elevate the worlds to me, and that's how I bring down my holiness into these worlds. He says, yes, obviously, the way you do it is through Torah, but if you unpack it a little more, you need three elements. You need the three things that the world stands on: Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasad. The reason for this is, why do you need three and you can't just have Torah? Because we know that the three worlds of Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya correspond to the three faculties of thought, speech, and action. So therefore, if you want to connect these three worlds to Hashem, you need to do something in thought, in speech, and in action. What is thought? Davening. What is speech? Torah. What is action? Good deeds. So you need all three. So why did we say in the verse only the word kavodi, only my honor, which refers to Torah, we didn't refer to the others? Says the Rebbe, because everything has to be done according to Torah. You daven according to Torah, you do chesed according to Torah. Now, if I could just share something a bit counterintuitive, you would have thought that davening is speech, because we daven with our speech, and Torah is with our mind. So there's something very powerful, and that is, most of us see davening as something to get through, to talk. And Torah, what we're doing now, we're learning Torah, that's when you use your mind. Yes, you use your mind in Torah, but I think the powerful insight is that you have to use your mind in davening. You daven in a thoughtful way, in a mindful way, focused. In other words, davening is a thought experiment, not just a verbal experiment. It's focus, it's intention, it's learning, it's personalizing. So we walk out of this paragraph understanding that to connect these worlds with Hashem, to upgrade, to elevate, and to download, is through three elements, all based on Torah: davening, learning, and chesed, which connect the three worlds to Hashem. Interesting, we mentioned earlier that our world is the world of Asiya, the lowest of the worlds. Which world is Asiya? Action. That's what it literally means, action. We're in the world of kindness. And that's why Hasidus put such an emphasis, especially you see it in the letters of the Alter Rebbe and Tanya, the focus on action, on chesed, on gemilas chasadim, on tzedakah. Let's go to the next paragraph. And similarly, it's to the creation of the human being, the Yeridas Nishmas Lamata. In other words, let's take this from the macro, all the worlds to the micro, the human being, Shayerida Hiderach Gimel Olam Esbiyah. That our soul goes into this world. When the soul is downloading into this world, it goes through the three worlds. That's why each morning we say, Elekai neshama shnosatabi, Hashem, the neshama that you gave me. Ata berasa yitzarta nefachta. Berasa, bria. Yitzarta, yitzira. Nefachta, you blew it into me. Literally, you made me into reality. That's asiya. Sheischaber sa'adam bar in seif. Because connecting the man to Hashem and bringing Hashem down to the human, is literally through the fact that we do Torah v'Gemilas Sadim. In other words, this is not only macro stuff. This is not only, the way the world works. This is the way you work. This is the way you build a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the way you and I elevate ourselves to Hashem. That's how we return our soul to its source. While living in our body, we connect to our ultimate source by Torah v'Gemilas Chasadim. The Naisif Lezeshi Misalis Lipkinas Tahiri, not only, he says, not only when we do Torah Gemilas Chasadim, do we connect to the highest of the four worlds. We go to the world above Bria Yetziras here. Not only do we go to the world of Atzilus, but rather we connect and we unite with ultimate godliness with Hashem himself. We literally return to the Hashem, we return to God who gave us the soul. We literally unite with the Hashem himself, not a level of godliness, but God himself. Dahainu, meaning the gam k'moshe lamata melubeshes beguf gashmi, meaning that even while I here as a human being am living in a physical body, I can be united. I can be ultimately united with Hashem at the same level of unity before I came into a human body, which is counterintuitive. Why? Because I have a human body, which is physical, which is pulling me down, which I'm living a very physical, materialistic existence. How could you tell me that while I'm a human being, eating, sleeping, living the human experience, the human emotions, I could connect? He says, yes. When you connect in these three ways, you're literally connecting to Hashem himself, the way you were before you were created. And behold, he says this idea that you could become united with Hashem while living the way you were before. How do you accomplish it? And here's where the punchline starts opening up, ladies and gentlemen, that's through tshuva. What allows the human being to reach the level that they can unite with Hashem in the ultimate level? Tshuva. And you can say, he says you could even see a hint to that from the verse that says, Haruach tashuv elikim, the spirit returns to God. Tashuv from the word tshuva. Why? Why tshuva? What does tshuva accomplish? Here's the point. The point is like this: the avodas hatzadikim, the serving of Hashem by being a tzaddik, by doing Torah avodah gemilas like a tzaddik, him did the v'agbala. It's limited. I'm a good boy. I'm a good girl. I do what I have to do. It's limited. It has scope. It's based on my own experience. Avodas hatshuva he lemaylim did the v'agbala. Tshuva is the definition of going beyond your boundaries, beyond your context, breaking through, doing something totally ridiculous, reinventing your life. That's what it means, that tshuva can be in 1 second, in one little flick, in one turn, in one paradigm shift. You could have a tshuva. Why? Because tshuva is not limited. It's not a step-by-step process. It's an awareness. It's a click. It's when the brain clicks. As the famous story in the Gemara about Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya, who left Yiddishkeit for a while, and then while being with a woman he shouldn't have been with, she says something that inspires him, and at that moment he literally, it clicks. Gosh, I've gone so far. And he literally breaks down in tears and sobs himself to death. And the great Rabbi Yehuda cries and says, look how somebody could achieve the world to come in 1 second. At that moment, Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya had an aha moment, the ultimate aha moment. He got it. That's what tshuva is. You leap because you have this moment of awareness. And therefore, the Baal Tshuva reaches a level that a tzaddik cannot reach, because the tzaddik, by definition, is going step by step. They're living a mesudar lifestyle, an organized lifestyle. So tshuva allows you to not only unite with Hashem to the level of Bria Yitzira Asiya, or even the level of Atzilus. Tshuva allows you to leap. Tshuva allows you to return to your source. We're actually, Bashkacha Pratis, by divine providence, we just finished in Tanya, the last few weeks, we were learning Igeres HaTshuva, all about the idea of Tshuva according to Chassidus in Tanya. V'lachein hashavas haneshama l'sharsha sheidei hatshuva yashava nailis ma'ashava sheidei Torah gemilas chasadim. Says, therefore, returning the soul to its source through tshuva is much greater than doing it through Torah avodah gemilas chasadim. And that's why Hashem says, Shalom, Shalom, larachik v'lakarev, larachik v'reisha, first the far, then the close. Sha'ashalom shenasa idei avodas hatshuva, rachik sheniskarev, hunali yesem ha'shalom sheidei avodas hatzadik karev. The peace that comes through tshuva, the unity, that's what, it's not peace. Shalom means literally oneness that's accomplished through tshuva is greater than the oneness that happens to Avodas Tzadikim. Interesting, the Rebbe usually doesn't refer to Rachik and Karev. As we know, the Rebbe didn't like referring to people who are not necessarily practicing the full Yiddishkeit every day. The Rebbe didn't like calling them far. But in this context, he is using the idea, the Pasuk's using Rachik and Karev, but not in a negative, but in a positive perspective, that they come closer to Hashem and closer than Tzadikim. Guys, ladies, now we're hitting the medical idea. This is why Rabbi Masinter felt like this is the Maimer to learn at this stage. Zeu gam shamamshit, because of this explains why the pasuk finishes off, Amar Hashem with a fasiv. Says Hashem, I heal him. Why do we need healing? Ki amayla d'avodas hatshuva. The incredible thing about shuva, shalom larachik, who shet shuva hi kamei refuah. The incredible thing about shuva is that it is exactly like healing. It's the same point. Va'inyanu, and what does that mean? As they explain in the Maimer, the bachilo shtia. It's actually, this idea will take over the imagination a bit. He says, when you eat and drink, in order to keep your soul in your body, in order to stay alive, you need a substantial amount of food and drink. Tisha B'Av is coming. Please God, it doesn't come, or it comes and it's a good day. But usually Tisha B'Av means you fast, and we know that when you break the fast, you want to have a good meal. You need quite a serious amount of calories to keep yourself going. But if you take medicines, even you take a lot of medicines, they're all pills, small pills. Some pills are a little bigger, a little smaller. If you think about it, it's crazy. Why? To keep yourself alive through food, do you need so much quantity? And medical, mash'enken b'refuah, when it comes to medicine, gam tipa achas, even one drop. Means some money or refuah, if it's from the right combination of medical ingredients, yesh b'koyach l'chazik iskashus nefesh b'guf, can literally keep you alive. We often don't think about it. What food, medicine, what? When it comes to food, you can't just swallow a pill. We tried it in the Midbar. We were eating man, and even then we started kvetching because first of all, there was more than one pill, but also because we didn't feel satiated, we didn't feel full. But when it comes to medicine, just throw a pill in. V'atam lezehu, the reason is ki hakoyach shebesamemani refuah einay mugbal kol kach b'koyach shebemazon. He says because the power, the potency that's found within the ingredients of a medicine is intensely more powerful in condensed form than food. In other words, if I'm going to have now a piece of fish the size of a pill, it's not going to do anything for me. Barely anything. But if I take a pill, it's so much condensed, so much intensity in a small amount that it can heal me if I, whatever issue I'm having. And therefore, it's not so dependent on quantity. And so too is when it comes to tshuva versus regular service of Hashem. Tshuva is a pill. Not a quick fix, it's a pill, which means that just like medicine, you could get your health back through something of small quantity. So too, tshuva doesn't necessarily demand incredible quantity, but it demands incredible quality, an incredible paradigm shift. The reason that tshuva can happen in one moment, in 1 second, so much so that we know that the Gemara tells us in Kiddushin that if somebody who is a known sinner turns to this woman and says, I'm marrying you on the condition that I'm a tzaddik, the marriage is valid because on that split second, he could have had a thought of tshuva and he's a tzaddik. What is it about tshuva? To do tefillin, I have to put on tefillin every single day. It's a full mitzvah. I have to make the bracha, I have to put it on, I do the whole davening. And almost pretty much every other mitzvah. But tshuva, it doesn't have it. But how long do you do tshuva for? Now I'm going to do tshuva for 10 minutes. No, tshuva is 1 second. It can be 1 second. It's one moment you decide, enough. I'm done. I'm switching. And you could change from a Rasha Gomer to Tzaddik Gomer, from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high. Ki tshuva hi l'mayla me'agbala, because tshuva is limitless. Tshuva doesn't fit any boundaries. Every mitzvah we do has a boundary. You daven shachris in the morning, mincha in the afternoon, ma'ariv in the evening. You eat matzah on Pesach. You eat us in a sukkah. There's boundaries. Tshuva doesn't have a time. It doesn't have a space. It doesn't have a method. Do this. Stand this way. Face this way. There's no mitzvah of when you're doing tshuva, face north. Do it standing, not sitting. Do it whichever way you want. Do it in the park. Do it while you're laying down in bed. Get it done. Switch. Make a paradigm shift. So that's like medicine. Small in quantity, but incredible intensity. And that's why, that's what we could say, Amar Hashem Rafasav, Hashem says, and I'll heal him. The fact that by healing and tshuva, it says, Amar Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, the name of Hashem, it's because you're achieving the ultimate level, Amar Avaya, you're achieving a connection with the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, through the power of refuah, the power of tshuva, is that you're reaching the powerful level, and therefore you could be transformed through that power in 1 second. And we can add to this. And here's an interesting bracket. Especially that the idea that I'm about to tell you, says the Rebbe, it's something that our generation needs, and many need it. Remember, as I said at the introduction, this mimer was given out when the Rebbe was physically not feeling well. That it was the only mimer that was given out after the Rebbe's stroke. It was edited by the Rebbe, going through it, looking through it, nodding. So the Rebbe is obviously talking about himself. He's talking about the generation. He's talking about us now. That what? The Pirush Refasiv, the explanation of the word, I will heal him, Hushani Havaya Erpa. The I, Refasiv is in first person. I will heal him. Not he will be healed. I will heal him. What's the insight there? He says, every time somebody gets healed, it's through Hashem. But usually it happens through a messenger. You go to the doctor and he gives you a prescription. Surgery. This level of refuah, comes from Hashem himself. Ani Hashem refecha. I, God, heal you directly. And therefore, it's in a level, it's such a complete healing as if you were never sick. To explain that, he says, when you're healed by Hashem directly, even if you were really unhealthy before, you can be healed in a way that there is no reishim, there's no aftermath, there's no memory within your DNA of the sickness. In other words, you're not, there's no long COVID. You're not suffering anything after. The Rebbe says, because usually by refuah basar adam, when you're healed by a human being, there could be a bit of a residue. Not every time you get healed is a complete healing as if nothing ever happened. A replaced hip is not the same as an original hip, etc., etc. But when you get healed by Hashem directly, when you get that miracle, or refasiv, when you get that incredible power, you're healed in a way as if you were never sick. This is something that our generation definitely needs. Through the refuah that Hashem heals us, it's as if you were never sick. Please God, we should see that. And he continues in the Maimer. Why first does it say Shalom larachik v'lakarev, hello to the far and close, and only after that he says, I will heal you? Because first we were far from Hashem. So after we become after we become close to Hashem through tshuva, and also after after it becomes Hashem says hello to the far one. In other words, after we initiate and after he initiates, as we've been talking about throughout the Maimer, it's a dual process. We come forward to him and he comes forward to us. You still need healing. You need to as if you were never sick in the first place. You need to be healed in a way that you were never sick. And how do you do that? Refuah is what we're doing now. It's through learning Torah. This is what it says Hashem, and I will heal him, that I will heal him. The refuah amar avaya, that the healing is from Hashem's name, amar avaya, that you are engraving within your mind letters of Torah in one's memory. In other words, what you're having is Amar Hashem, you become speaking godliness. Amar Hashem, each and every one of us becomes speaking godliness. So when we speak Torah, then we achieve the healing. Now, interesting, just 6 weeks before the Rebbe's stroke, the Rebbe gave a Sikha on Gimel Shvat, third day of Shvat, where the Rebbe spoke about his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, who for the last years of his life struggled physically to speak. And the previous Rebbe's doctor one time approached him with a question. He says, why were the Rebbe's physical afflictions such that they prevented him from speaking properly? Since he uses his capacity of speech to teach Chassidus, Hashem should have granted him a greater proficiency in this quality than others. Instead, the opposite is true. He lost the power of speech. And the Rebbe did not resolve this question. Instead, on this Sikha, the Gimel Shvat, the Rebbe proposed a solution. That each person must accept a personal challenge. That his study of Torah should be carried out in a manner that can, in whatever way possible, compensate for the difficulty in communication possessed by the leader of the generation. In other words, you become the mouthpiece of the Rebbe. You talk, and through that, the Rebbe talks through you. You talk, and through that, Hashem talks through you, which is very much the content that we're learning right now. And it's something the Rebbe said six weeks before his stroke, and unfortunately, the context was understood, not too soon, not too long after. And the Rebbe says, I want to just add an insight that the fact that the Maimer says that the healing comes through Torah, it's not only spiritual healing that comes through Torah, it's also physical healing. Kamashakasav, like it says, Ulechol Besarai Mirape. It says that Hashem heals us from all our flesh through Torah. So according to this, we could say the fact that what we mentioned earlier, that Hashem, when He heals us, is in a way that there's nothing, no residue. It's as if we were never sick in the first place. Hashem, we can accomplish that level of healing even when it happens through a doctor. It could happen even when you need a medical professional to be Hashem Shliach, and through some money, through actual medicine, you can accomplish it. Why? Seemingly, shouldn't the doctor be getting in the way? Because Torah owns the world, dictates to the world, including the whole idea of healing, all medicine, everything comes from Torah. Torah is the blueprint of the world. He says, not only practical medicine, even theological medicine. In other words, the intellect of it, the biology of it, and the actual medicine. So if Torah runs everything, you understand, the Torah has the power, that even healing through medical professionals, and through medicines, it can be accomplished that you'll be healthy in a way that there'll be nothing left over. Actually, a nekabit chilas as if it never happened. And the Rebbe gives an interesting anecdote. He says, by the way, he says, even according to natural medicine, there is the kind of medicine which removes the sickness in first place. In other words, even without necessarily divine intervention, even without the miracle, you can still have it. But this medicine is not common. I'm not sure what the Rebbe is referring to. So what kind? So who knows this medicine? Will we discover it? Please God, we do. But the common medicines that we have are in a way that there is a residue. And therefore you have, through Torah, the ability that you have the ability, the Torah has the power, that the healing that comes through regular medication, that should be in a way that there's nothing left over. Because already there is the potential, the idea of medicine that heals you from the beginning exists, even though we're not using that medicine, the medicine could accomplish that. Please God for each and every one of us. And the previous Rebbe's Maimer continues and on the verse and says, the previous Rebbe continues and says, how does the Baal Tshuva fully heal themselves in the way that they were never sick in the first place? Through moving the lips, nifsvasayim, fruit of the lips. What is that? Vidui dvarim, confessing, taking accountability. Why? Now we start answering the questions. Why is it called nifsvasayim, which is dibra b'memela, words that come on their own and not necessarily from the mind? He says, because the Baal Tshuva's confession, the Baal Tshuva's passion to connect with Hashem is not a mindful experience. It's from the essence of their heart. It just flows. Hashem, I want to get close to you. Hashem, bring me home. So not that it's mindless. It's from the deepest recesses of your soul. It's screaming out. Now this explanation, that nifsasai, moving your lips, is confession, fits with the explanation of nifsasayim, the way the Gemara explains it, and the Radak brings it as the second opinion. The shalom l'rachik kaya Baal Tshuva, that shalom to the far one is referring to Baal Tshuva. Ulepirish haradak the shalom l'rachik kaya rachik mishleim. So what about the first interpretation, that far is the people far from Yerushalayim? How does that fit into anything we've been talking about? The Maimer explains the Yerushalayim, the word Yerushalayim comes from two words. Yira, Shalom, complete. Yira, complete awe of Hashem. Yira Shamayim, that's what it means. Fear of heaven, awe of Shamayim. What does it mean you're far from Yerushalayim? Very interesting insight. When I was learning the Maimer, obviously the medical ideas resonate, but this idea hit home as well. Rachek Yerushalayim, being far from Yerushalayim, who Zeh Shebeteva Ein Yerushalayim. Some of us naturally are not Yerushalayim. Some people are naturally born goody-goodies, and it fits their modus operandi. They're naturally Yerushalayim. Some people, Beteva, are not. But Eitzel is Nifs Vasayim. What's the advice? How do you get your Yerushalayim if it's not natural? If it's not easy? Dibur b'divrei Torah, talking through divrei Torah. V'yesh lemer, we could explain why is Dibur and Torah, talking Torah in this pasuk referred to Nifs Vasayim, automatic words, Dibur b'mimela. L'rames, it's to hint to us, to teach us a message, she'adam tzarich liyishakua kol kach b'Torah, that we have to be so involved in learning. Please God, like now. Sha'adibur b'Torah yiba'efin b'mimela, that the talking in Torah is in the way, it's like automatic, it's who we are, it's our identity, screaming out from us. Al derech marazal, like the sages say, minafshei kara, when a person was bowing down, it was automatically, it's not like mindful, okay, now bow. It's who I am. It has to become a flow. I'm not fighting it. It's not me in the text going, okay, I want to go to sleep, I want to get off the Zoom. No. I'm in the flow. B'yesh l'kashzan, we could connect this to what we said earlier in the Maimer. The Ayin Amar Hashem Rafasivu Shetifrei Torah Yuchakukim Azerus Zechani. This connects to what we said, that a person has to have Amar Avai, they have to engrave the thoughts of Torah in their mind. You have to literally learn things by heart. What does it mean to engrave? As we know, Chassidus explains a lot. Chakika means it literally becomes one with you. Unlike writing, when I write on something, the ink and the paper are still separate. Engraving means it's literally part of me. It's one with the thing that's being engraved. So through the fact that each and every one of us will become one with Torah, that our identity, that our who we are is Torah, our existence is Torah, then everything we say, even if we're not necessarily in a study, headspace, and Divrei Torah, they'll be Torah because we're in Torah. This is what Bar Nifs Vasayim means. This is why we use the word boire, creating from new, because this is a whole new level each and every one of us aspires for. That we literally come from a limited human being who cares about the human stuff, to literally boire a new level of creation, Torah flow. I'm literally one with Torah. And that's the ultimate healing. That's the ultimate level of Baal Tshuva. So yes, to become a Baal Tshuva takes a second, but then to implement it, as you can see, it's not easy business. And that's why the previous Rebbe brought the first explanation of Radak about Yerushalayim, far and close to Yerushalayim, before he brought far and close Baal Tshuva and Tzaddik. Ki amayla d'nifs vasayim, because the incredible power of talking automatically, being an automatic speaker of Torah, is expressed much more in the Yerushalayim. Why? Because according to the Gemara, that far as Baal Tshuva, at the beginning, the journey of a Baal Tshuva, we said that's confession. Fine. So yes, it's automatic, but it's not an eternal experience. However, when we talk about Nifs Vasayim getting close to Yiras Shamayim, because our Yiras Shamayim is incomplete, we're trying to become one. That's a full experience. That's Rachik Mirushalayim. That's where Nifs Vasayim really expresses itself, where I literally become a walking Torah. The Ikar Amayla, the big accomplishment of becoming a Nifs Vasayim Jew, becoming somebody who's automatically talking, is not in the second level, the second interpretation. And when we do confession, vidui, but it's when we become Torah Yidden, because that's when you literally become a Bria Chadasha, you become a new entity. So before we do the final ice, which is really the take-home message, let's really unpack where we're holding. Each and every one of us, we become Bayrei Nifsasayim. Hashem could create a new identity where He creates Nifsasayim, that the Torah flows through us. Amar Hashem, Shalom Shalom. Hashem says hello, hello to the person who's far from Yer Shamayim. In other words, it's not easy for them to have Yer Shamayim. But Lakarv, and the person who is close to Yer Shamayim, and Amar Hashem, and then Hashem, you become a person who's talking godliness, and that's the complete healing. Or the second interpretation, Bayrei Nifsasayim, that you create the utterances of the tongue, which is vidui, confession. Shalom larachik, to the Baal Tshuva, Shalom lakarev, to the tzaddik. Amar Hashem Rafasim, you become a Baal Tshuva in one moment of transforming yourself. But ultimately, what's the power? The power is the potency of literally transforming yourself through one moment and then becoming one with Hashem. The unity, as we spoke about earlier. And let's add to this, that through the fact that the previous Rebbe said this Maimer Bayrei Nifsasayim, and we can add, through the fact that the Rebbe then said this Maimer Bayrei Nifsasayim, Ubifrad, especially after he published this Maimer, each and every one of us has the power, especially those who follow his ways. That the Torah that they learn, and not only the Torah they learn, but everything they do on the inyanim, on the things, on the passions of the Rebbe, will be in a method, will be in a way of nifsasayim. Literally, you'll become one with it. You become one with the things that the leader of the generation is passionate about. So much so that each and every of our actions, even those that are done without intention, will be busted Ebbeville, what the Rebbe wants. And the way that we grow constantly. Every day, our passion for the stuff of the Nasi will be with new vitality, in an incredibly new perspective, new way. So much so that you'll literally be a new person, Bria, Bayrei Nifsasayim, a new person each day with an incredible renewed vitality. Especially when it comes to Limud Torah, as we said, Nifsasayim talks about Torah, that the adding Limud Torah should be Be'ein Arech, infinite. We should just be constantly growing. Says the Rebbe, especially now that's 50 years since the Frierdiker Rebbe said this Maimer, and we know Olam, when we say Olam, which means forever, it means 50 years, a Yovel's 50 years, and then starts a new world, as it be. So now we've achieved 50, a new world, and we know that 50 also accomplishes incredible intellectual growth. As the Pirkei Avos says, when you hit 50, you get wise and you're able to give good advice. So after 50 years of the Maimer, we're able to reach a new level of Limud Torah with understanding and becoming one with it. Literally, just like Rab Zera, who went from the one level, the level of Talmud Bavli to Talmud Yerushalmi, which was an infinite growth, so too each and every one of us can achieve infinite growth. It's fascinating, again, that this is the last Maimer we got from the Rebbe, literally telling us what it means to be a chassid, what it means to walk in his ways. And to add one more thing. Although you'll say that to achieve this level, that I'll become one, a renewed entity, I'll become one with Hashem, is through tremendous effort. And the Rebbe says, and there's some people would think, imagine, they don't want to be a new people. I don't want to make the effort. My behavior going forward will be exactly the way I was now. I don't want like Rebbe, you spoke powerful stuff in this Maimer. I'm very comfortable in the space I'm in. They have to know. It's a Yiddish word. The fact that they're convincing themselves, the self-delusion, will not help. Hashem's word will be eternal. What's Hashem's word? He made it within each and every one of us that we want to grow. It's the human condition to grow. Even the fact that you and I think, I don't want to make an effort. It's not really what I want. Today everyone says, I'm talking my truth. It's not your truth. Hurak dimya, it's only a fantasy, it's an imagination. We all want to do the right thing, we all want to grow. As the Rambam's the famous thing with the law of divorce, that you force somebody because that's really what they want. And when you and I will explain to ourselves, Mahu Ritzaynam Hamiti, what is our true will? Yavai Haratzin Begilui. For me, this is very counterintuitive. It's so against the culture we live in. Talk your truth, be yourself. No, he says, tell yourself what you want. I want to be a Yid that learns. Then you'll become that. Don't let your inside tell you what you want. Tell you what you want. And that's really what you want. Yavai Haratzin Begilui, and that will activate that the Ratzin is revealed. And eventually you'll do it not only because you have to, but because you want to and because you enjoy it. When we put the effort in all this, you'll achieve success in the way of mitzvah. In other words, beyond your capabilities, beyond your effort. That's why mitzvah, you find something out of the blue, disproportionate to your searching. Till we come to the ultimate mitzvah, ultimate find. Matsasi David Avdi, I found David, my servant, which refers to Mashiach Batzukenu, Habab Hadas, which comes when we're like out of the blue. And the previous Rebbe said that the fact that Mashiach has to come B'Esach Hadas is not a steer. It doesn't negate the fact that we have to talk about Mashiach. You have to talk about Mashiach and you have to live Mashiach and focus on it. And that brings Mashiach. The true interpretation of a diversion of attention is a commitment beyond attention, beyond the level of intellect. And that's why we have to kacha Mashiach, shemekaris b'yas Mashiach tzidkenu b'ofen leitin afilu karafayin, take of me on mamish. We achieve this level, literally, that Hashem will not hold us back. And I finish with this. First of all, shekerech for the incredible group that stayed with us. Hashem should send us healing, each and every one of us, in our private lives, in our physical lives, in our material lives, in every bracha we need. And we should see healing in our world, in our community, locally in our country. And we should see the ultimate healing in a way that not only does it heal, but there's still residue. It's healing in a way that there was nothing negative. And we come out of this COVID madness and we come out of all our challenges healed in the ultimate way, wishing us all a good Menachem of Hashem should truly comfort us in the best way possible. Shekerech, everybody. Thank you.